What if being busy is actually making your business worse? And what if, as entrepreneurs, we've heard this millions and millions of times, what if this is the time it lands and you make it different? Because today's guest spent years juggling client work, parenting, nonstop hustle, until a full-blown health crisis forced her to rebuild everything. And here's what nobody's talking about, except we are. This point is valid, though, and we all get to listen. Burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from ignoring what matters most. Welcome back to the Mind of George show. This is where entrepreneurs discover that true scaling isn't about hacks, tactics, or burning yourself out. It's about aligning your mindset, your message, your customer journey, and marketing to create, keyword, sustainable growth that feels authentic and aligned with who you are. We cut through the noise to help you build a business that matters and make money doing it. And me and Andi, the incredible Andi Clark, we dive deep. We talk about why being productive isn't the same thing as being intentional, how to build a life that works with your nervous system, the true cost of ignoring your body while building your business, and real strategies that you can implement immediately for rebuilding your energy, your boundaries, and your clarity. And so if you've ever been stuck in burnout cycles or don't know why, or constantly dread going to the office or feel like you can't get any more work done, or you're tired of sacrificing your health for hustle and you're ready for something different, or you actually want to grow without grinding yourself into the ground, this episode is for you. So if your business is breaking your body, it's not sustainable. And today's conversation might just change how you show up for yourself, for your success, and for the results that you create. So without further ado, let's dive into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George show. I am stoked for today's guest and also for today's topic, because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about stress, we're going to be talking about relationships, but we're going to be talking about mastering them in a different way than you've probably heard before, because today's guest is not only somebody that I know really, really well, she's in my alliance, but she's also my sounding board when needed. And truthfully, full transparency, I don't reach out enough, but I'm glad that she's here. She is an expert and lives in two worlds. World number one is helping parents navigate children with big emotions, neurodivergent children, big emotions, and like how to be a better parent, how to navigate that, how to empower them, how to inspire them. But also, she is a sleep, stress, and resilience coach and a IFS informed coach. And I'm going to leave that as an open loop for you. I know what IFS means. I'm going to let her tell you in a minute, because I think in today's conversation, it's going to be massively empowering from a lens of awareness, but also tactical application to where there's parts and pieces of our life where sometimes we feel out of control or that we don't know what's happening. And when we can label those things, it starts to bring massive release, clarity, but also action items to take. And so I am stoked to have today's guest, my dear friend, Andi Clark. So Andi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Was that intro okay? Did I hit
No,
it? Did I miss
perfect.
anything?
No, you know me well. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So with that, and for everybody here, I think the two things that I want you to start with is number one, what is IFS, which I know and you know, but I think it's helpful for everybody to know. And I also know that through the rest of this podcast, you and I are going to be using the word parts a lot. And I want to define parts so everybody has an understanding of what parts are. So I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah. So actually, those two questions are one and the same. So basically, we have what we call as our self. That's when we're calm, curious, connected, kind, when we're being empathetic, when we can like really good problem solving. That's our self. Then we have all of these other parts that kick in. We're angry. We have anxiety. We're feeling stressed. We're feeling bugged about something. We're worrying. We're sad. We're hurt. These are all parts of us. And these parts, though, like to protect us in certain ways based on things that have happened in our life. So a quick and easy thing, if we're thinking of parts, we can think of, the part of you that wants that bag of chips, but the part of you knows that you should eat something healthy. These are two different parts, and they're both trying to protect you in different ways. So that's like the quick and easy of it. The thing is that these parts are all from when something happened to us when we were younger, when something was too fast, too soon, too quick, of anything. in our life. So these things happen in business. We can have traumas in business, especially with like the market happens or something like crazy happens in business that we did not plan for. We know we're not expecting. A part can kick in to start protecting us. Can happen in relationships with our kids where we have a neurodivergent child and all of a sudden sounds bother them and they can't go to sports or events or things without meltdowns, and parts might start kicking in us because that was not what we were expecting. We can have parts in relationships. We can have parts with our spouses, with our family, with our parents, in all relationships, business relationships. So parts kick in and they do affect everything in our lives.
Mm. And then IFS stands for what? Internal family systems?
Yes, internal family systems. So we think of all these parts like actually our internal family. So they're all parts of us. They're all pieces of us. They're all memories of us. So they're our internal family. And this is a system that's internally in us that likes to protect us. Mm-hmm. And they protect us quite often in ways that surprise us once we start diving into finding out, okay, why am I, really struggling with hiring? I worked with somebody with that, where it was like they were really, really struggling. Their stress was so much with hiring. And once we dove into that, we realized it was that years ago when there was a market crash, their business just was product business overnight. They went bankrupt because they're such successful business. They had marketed these high-end dresses into these stores, and all of those stores went bankrupt overnight. Their business went bankrupt overnight. That they struggled in their next business once they got to about $1 million run rate. They had this part that kicked in that would not let them hire more staff. And we had to work with that part and help that part understand that, because this part gets stuck, mm-hmm. and the part doesn't know that that they got through it. They learned all kinds of tools and skills of what they would have done instead. They've already grown another business and are already at $1 million run rate. That the stock market crash hasn't happened. That's all done. Economy's good now. And so you have to almost update this part to help them understand and create a new neural pathway in the brain, mm-hmm. so that part then allowed them to start hiring, and then they were able to grow and expand. So it affects us in these ways that surprise us. But once we dive in and we realize, okay, why is this part protecting us? How is it protecting us? And we see that memory, we're like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah, I love this. I want to summarize this for everybody listening, because we have two different lenses on this. You're the trained lens and I am the trained myself lens. And as a parent, I always think about it as that movie like Inside Out, where there's different characters have like, here's greed, here's envy, here's empathy, here's boom. But then each character is its own little person inside of there that has its story. And that story is influenced by experiences in our life. And you said early on, things that happened to us as a child, if it was too fast, it was too much. But also, those stories never stop being written. They can happen today. They can happen yesterday. They can happen tomorrow when you have this expectation going into how this meeting is going to go, and you pitch your product or you pitch your offer, and then out of the blue, it goes completely against whatever you thought. And all of a sudden, now that part that I'm about to pitch my services part has this story. Well, maybe my service isn't good enough. Maybe it's not valuable. Maybe it's not here. And what ends up happening is that all these stories end up being collected, and then we don't acknowledge them, unpack them, explore them, or build a relationship with them. And then those stories start dictating our actions and behaviors, leading to more of what we don't want because those stories are trying to protect us. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And what you said, your actions, behaviors, and beliefs.
And beliefs.
Yes. So those three things, when you keep thinking, these were mine. I'm not good enough. Yep. I'm not smart enough. And those were my beliefs that I had. And as you said, there's a chain. And when I started working through the chain, I went back to a certain time and went like, oh yeah, that's it. And I worked through it and I still had the belief. And I had to go back even further until like right into my childhood to realize the deep root of that belief of I'm not good enough. And the other one of I'm not smart enough, which is crazy too, because I had like A's and A pluses all in school. I was like, it was crazy because I had these amazing marks, but I'm also neurodiverse and my brain worked a different way, and the way that I understood tests and the way that I had to work at things that I always felt misunderstood and like I wasn't good enough in the academics, even though my grades said well. And all of these parts were implemented. So the limiting beliefs too, where when somebody's telling you, start doing affirmations or start changing your mindset, if you don't go back and work on that part and help change that neural pathway of the part, quite often it is very, very, very hard to change that limiting belief.
I actually want to unpack this with you. And like I said, and for everybody listening, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I am somebody who's experienced a lot of trauma in my life and had to figure out how to get to this perspective and this place. And I see this happen, and I fell into this trap. So two things that I want to say. First is interesting on the I'm not good enough, because I have the same story, but mine didn't come from getting all A's. Mine came from having to survive as a child and basically being on my own and choosing work over school at 13, 14. So then that wired itself into me that the only way to succeed is to grind into hard things. Like if it's not hard, if it's not chaotic, then it's not going to work. And it's been a decade or so of constantly rewiring that neural pathway to realize that ease and peace is possible as well, but the amount of residue that I had. And so I want to unpack this part, because affirmations, we see them, I talk about them, and I made this mistake years ago where I'm like, okay, I get this logically, I have to shift my belief. And so shifting my belief is being in action, having affirmations. And I heard a yoga teacher say this a couple of weeks ago, and I give him full credit. Your actions are who you are. Your words are who you want to be. And it landed deeply. And so then it's like, okay, I'm doing these things. But the mistake I made is I took this blanket approach where I'm like, oh, if I just pour in all this positive stuff, it's going to rewire and rework all of these little things inside of me. But it didn't. It required that I found what we call those parts, right? I was like, oh, there's the coach George, there's the relationship George, there's the father George, there's the fitness George, there's the friend George, and each one had its own narrative that one blanket statement or one blanket course couldn't fix. It required that I dove into each one of those. And so for people listening to this or watching this, what is the first step? Is the first step to explore what those parts of you are, and how does somebody do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think maybe I wasn't clear as well. It was the me not smart enough was the school part partly, but also me not good enough was always being put down. Like I was outside of the box. I always had these brilliant ideas, and that scared my parents.
No, you said it right. I meant to say not smart enough, because that's okay. One of mine. So you said it right.
I have both. I have the not smart enough and I have the not good enough. Though I just wanted to say it wasn't solely just from the grades part. It was also the always being put down part.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Oh, ditto.
Yeah. Completely. Right. So with the parts, so prime example is that I was working with a client today, and with that client that I was working with, she has realized that, so I have animals for our stress animals.
Okay.
So
we'll unpack that in a little while.
Right. So she's in clownfish. Clownfish always needs to fix. Clownfish is worried about everything out there, wants to make sure everything's okay, wants to make sure everything's safe. She's in clownfish. And we have tried the tools. She's started the breathing. She's doing all those external tools, right? She still can't stop being clownfish. I'm like, let's dive into the part of that. We dove in today. And so when we dove in, that part was 12 years old. In that memory of the day that her parents divorced, said that they were divorcing. She didn't realize what had come before that and why they said it. And so she needed to fix that relationship. And so that's why continuing now, while she has kids, all of that stuff, she feels she needs to fix everything all the time. She could not get out of clownfish. So when we're learning about being in a stress state, we need to make sure that if you really can't, if the tools aren't working, there's probably a part. So in order to work with a part, the first thing that you do is you sit there and you focus your breath and you think, okay, do I feel that part somewhere in my body? Do I feel them? You might feel tightness in your neck. Like right now when I'm feeling it and I'm thinking of that, it's my gut. And I have gut issues that a naturopath has not been able to fix. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to dive deeper into my gut stuff. And I've found some really huge parts in my gut. So where do you feel it? And you breathe into that. And you start to find that part. So where is the part that always needs to fix? Or where is the part that, as we were saying, that didn't feel it was smart enough, right? When I think of that part that's not smart enough, can I connect with them? And you take that deep breath. And some people visually see them. Some people it's visual. Some people, they just feel an emotion. Like an emotion pops up, and some people feel it in their body. It's different for everybody as to how they feel it. I'm a very visual person. I get the craziest visuals. So you feel where they are. You kind of see them. You can kind of feel the presence of them. And you give them gratitude first, because whatever they've been doing, they've been making you feel not smart enough, but it is all for the best feelings from them, because they are protecting you from the emotional and intellectual intelligence that they had at that time. They are protecting you from whatever they believe, from wherever they're stuck. So we give them gratitude and let them know that we're going to go at a pace that works for them. We would love to get to know them. And we ask if there's any memories they want to share. And as soon as we ask if there's any memories they want to share, sometimes they're not ready. Like if we're just starting to do this work, we have to take time to get to know them. And so that's where, if they're not ready to give you a memory, then we tell them that's okay. And we start feeling them throughout our day. Whenever we feel something about, I'm not smart enough, you have a chat with them and go, I hear you're protecting me. I'm very grateful that you're protecting me. And, I, would love to get to know you more, and start to build out relationships. You have to think this is a neglected child. And so they're not just going to open up to you right away. Some do. And the more that you do the work, the more that they're all ready to be there. And so the first thing is to start to get to know them and find out that memory. And it is amazing, because usually there's tears when the memory comes, or the person's like, oh, wow, I did not expect that. Because it's usually not the reason you would think. And that's the problem with starting to do the work first, is we're trying to do the work based on a problem we think is the root cause. But once we find out why, we realize the root cause is so different. So different.
Yeah, I want to highlight a couple of things that said. Number one, and I think that this was profound, now that everyone has an understanding of what parts means, is that if the tools aren't working, there's probably an undiscovered or unexplored part. And I see this all the time, because I'm also going to call out the elephant in the room for everybody listening to this. Like, no way this is going to help me make more money. No way this is going to help scale my business. This is 95% of the conversations that I have every day with every high achieving client, every 7-figure, 8-figure, and even 9-figure client. And the one thing that I've noticed is the higher and higher we go, the more prevalent this conversation is, because it's truly a game of mastering the relationship with yourself, understanding what drives us, what influences those beliefs, what influences those actions and behaviors. And none of us are immune to this, none of us. And I think it's so important just to acknowledge, like, we live in a very stressful world. We live in a world that bombards us, where, 100 years ago, we only had to keep up with the news of our town. And now we have 8 billion people's news and trauma and, circumstances and worldviews and all these things that we have access to. And so these parts of us, these relationships that we have with these parts of us, they're constantly, if you listen to the podcast with my best friend TJ, constantly influencing our unconscious mind. And that unconscious mind is filtering this information. It's like, hey, here's a piece of evidence to justify this story. Hey, look, this happened again. I even saw this happen to a friend of mine. And now my internal part is like, see, it happened to a friend. It's going to happen to you. And then writes that story and then writes that story. And so I love the way that you break that down. And I also love the building a relationship with it. Like, these are the parts that are inside of us, right? And giving them parts also gives us labels. And when you can label something in the human brain, it gives this container for it to live in. And all of a sudden it becomes this tangible thing. And if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, I'm like, hey, have a stillness practice, have a boredom practice, like take the time to build a relationship with yourself. I look at it like there's different compartments in my body, right? And as silly as this might be, the analogy that I use is like when I go to the gym, I don't train my whole body every day. I'll train my arms one day, I'll train my chest another day, I'll train my back another day, I'll train my legs another day, I'll train my cardio. But I'm only focusing on that part that needs my attention. And that's how I see parts for myself. And so the first step is to acknowledge it. And I'm going to be open with everybody. I have a new one coming up that I have not had before. And this is post-divorce and navigating co-parenting, which, blessing, everything is gravy, but it has its own sides. And I have this part of me as a child who grew up with social services and worried about, getting taken away and emancipation and custody battles and like a 10-year divorce. I want to control it all and I can't. And so I now have this massive clenching in my jaw and this tightness to where my jaw has been really, really sore. And I worked through this part a couple of years ago because that's how I dealt with the PTSD from being in the military. I would grind my teeth. I would break teeth. I would grind and clench so hard. And I got rid of all of it and it was gone. Teeth great, no night guard, no anything. And in the last couple of months, I'm like, why is my head hurt? Why is my neck so sore? And now I'm having this conversation with my jaw. And truthfully, what's been unpacked so far is where I don't use my voice to speak in to like my truth because I don't feel worthy of having a desire or having a want or being able to do it. But also I don't feel comfortable expressing that unless I can control the entire outcome, like almost like I have an expectation that it's going to look a certain way. And so I wanted to share that for anybody listening, because I think this is something, you've said this before, it's a relationship. We're building this relationship and it's this ongoing relationship with these parts of ourselves. And so what I heard you say was, number one is like when you notice, you have to acknowledge its existence. You get to be grateful for it because it served you to get to this point. But now you also have this part of your body or this part of yourself where you get to explore. Okay, cool. It served me to here, but is it going to serve me to where I want to go? And then I get to start to have this two-way relationship with it to start to unpack and integrate what follows. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're reparenting all of these parts. And the one thing that I would like people to know is like, you can go through parts therapy and you can work, like when I'm working with clients, when I'm doing the work on myself, like I'm going through something big in my life right now currently. And all of these parts just came up and I'm like, hold on, I was really good. I had done all this work. I've done all these things but all of a sudden, all these new parts came up, but they came up because I wasn't having that experience. Mm-hmm. And now that I am, these other parts have started kicking in and I'm like, okay, I'm going back. And I'm like, love it. I'm meeting with her once a week. Because I'm like, I do this with clients, but now it's like, this is what I need to be feeling and working through. And one thing you said as well is like these parts they come back or they will shift with every new stage. So if you start getting into a new relationship, but this also can be business, right? So, or it can even be that maybe one of your siblings then marries and then there's now a new dynamic in the family. As far as that goes, that can even shift parts in based on the dynamics between certain people. But in business, when you're growing a business, when it keeps growing and you bring on new people or have different business relationships with clients, you may find out that one client, all of a sudden, new parts are starting to kick in. And you're like, wow, why are they kicking in from this? Yeah. Right? Or like even example, my son plays on a sport and I'm helping navigate and manage it. And there's just one parent that I have parts kicking in. I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, how do I navigate this? I need my crucial conversation skills to be working through with this one individual in order to keep the calm and the peace. But that part hadn't been there until that individual started coming into play.
I actually think I don't want to take a detour. I want to unpack something you just said, because you said this calm and peace, which I feel like the goal in parts and understanding and recognizing parts are to be able to come back to presence and not allow these parts to dictate our reactions, but instead be able to be aware of them and choose our response. Is that fair?
Yeah. So as I started at the beginning and I said that we're in self, usually we want to be in self. That's where I call like the dolphin animal, right?
Okay.
That's our dolphin where we're playful, we're friendly, we want to be in groups, we're able to really connect with people. Like so if we imagine a dolphin when they're like, you know, jumping through the waves and just playing, that's dolphin. And we want to really be in that stress animal most of the time. When we're kicking into another stress animal or into another part, before we do the part work, we don't know their parts. Once we do more work and we're in self more often, when you're able to be a dolphin more often, then you start realizing when you're not. And I'm like, ooh, okay, I just kicked into my shark. You know, I'm on predator, I'm on a prowl, I'm ready to attack, right? Or I'm like thinking danger's going to come. And I know I am. And I'm like, okay, there's a part there. I need to sit and talk with this part. I need to sit and work on it. And if I can't do it myself. So, for example, there's been a relationship with me recently where they have a part and I have a part. And this is with relationships too, right? It could just be their part and your part. And it's the same part for both of us. And we both know its parts because we speak the parts language. That I this week went to my therapist and I went, okay, I know I have this part kicking in, but I can't work on this part myself. And it's kicking in, and their part they know, and they're working with, you know, their IFS coach as well to work on that part because we know it's affecting our relationship and we know it's a part. But even when the parts are kicking in, we're good enough to get into self and be like, okay, we know this is a part. We need to pause this a little bit and go and work on these parts. But it takes us a while to realize that those parts have kicked in for both of us.
Yeah. No, that's huge. And I feel like I have to ask now, because I wanted to talk about stress with you today anyways, because I feel like, and I'm going to frame this before we talk about the animals, but I feel like stress is this outside catalyst that exposes parts a whole lot faster, right? Like the moment something stressful happens, whether predictable or unpredictable, it is like this massive, massive pressure test. And then parts just start wiling out like crazy, right? Like I feel like if we had no cell phones, no internet, we all lived our little life, like walked our water, did our garden, like, you know, went back to only seeing our neighbors when like we opened the garage and said, hey, welcome home. How was your work day? Right? Like we wouldn't have it, but we are surrounded by stress. And I want to talk about stress. But before I do that, now I'm really intrigued about all these animals. We have lionfish, we have dolphin, we have shark.
It's the three. So, you know, fight, flight, or freeze.
Yep.
So fight is shark, flight is clownfish, and freeze is turtle. Right? So this is understanding also, like, so if the dolphin is there and we kind of want to be in the dolphin's where we're playing. At the same time, though, sometimes we do need to be in shark.
Yep.
Because we do need to be protecting our surroundings. If there is a danger around us, we need to be, but we need to be in a shark that is, I want to say, still in a little bit of control, like still able to big picture think and still, but can attack if need be when we're protecting. Clownfish as well. Like when we're getting a gut feeling sometimes of like, this doesn't really feel right to me. This doesn't feel safe. That clownfish is a good thing. But when that clownfish is making everything not feel like a good thing, everything not feeling safe, everything feeling like a danger, then that's where we need to work with the clownfish. And the turtle as well. And the turtle is one that people, especially in kids and in adults, there's the degree where the turtle can be the kid where the teachers really like. This was one of my kids because they're like, well, they never speak out of turn. They do exactly as they're asked. They stay in line. And you need to watch and pay attention enough to see, is that kid ever really just a kid? Because my one kid isn't really. Like I remember in SK, the teacher finally said in January, he's talking to other kids now. And I'm like, oh, he wasn't? I'm like, and why am I only hearing about this now? But, right? But that was his stress sign. He was very stressed about it. So he's the one that just gets quiet and calm and appeases everybody. So that is like your turtle. And you need to understand that that's also a stress sign. It's not just the deep turtle where they won't respond, where they won't speak, where they're totally shut down, where that can frustrate somebody who's a shark that wants to talk, wants to do things, right? And so the thing with these animals that I love as well is understanding, first off, what is your stress animal and what is your child's, or what is yours and what is your employees, right? What is yours? What is your spouse's? So in understanding your stress sign and understanding theirs too, you might find that the way that, like, if you're in clownfish and you're always trying to fix things, that makes a turtle more.
Yep.
And that makes a shark attack more.
Yep.
So it's understanding first what is your stress animal. And then from there, understanding how, when somebody else is in a certain animal, how do I react?
Yes. Is it, and this is a really easy yes or no question, is it possible that our default stress animal changes with time?
Absolutely. And we can also have a few mixed. Yes.
Yeah. Because, well, it's interesting because dolphin is ideal, right? That's self. I'm in my body. I'm calm. I'm peaceful. I'm aware, right? Like I'm present. It would be present, right? And then shark is like fight, fight, fight. Clown, is it clownfish?
Yes.
Clownfish is fix, right? Which is the equivalent of like flight. And then turtle is freeze. Well, there's a part of me in my interpersonal romantic relationships where I used to be a shark, where if something happened and it didn't matter, and this is hard to say, if the other person's feelings were hurt, I would like fight because I was so used to chaos in my childhood that I only knew how to find love in the midst of this massive, massive storm. And then that got eradicated about 6 years ago, but after like extensive work. But now I'm the clownfish to where if something is not ideal, I want to fix, which a lot of men do. But my partner is a turtle and wants to retreat. And we haven't had labels for it, but we find this and we have agreements now that if one of it happens, we just sit there present with each other, but I can't break the silence. I just get to wait until, and sometimes it takes 45 minutes and it's heavenly because then I can hear differently because it's state changing, but like mine have definitely changed over time.
Yeah. And that's amazing because we've done that, but then I'd be very curious too, to see what part of you is kicking in that needs to fix now.
Oh, 100%. And we actually end up talking about it after. Like this happened like a week ago because we're in a long distance relationship. And so like there's a lot of FaceTime and something subtle. Like she's like, here's my opinion on something. And I had a different one and how to navigate a situation, but I felt wrong for wanting to navigate it my way. So I got in this like, but don't you see? And then after the silence, it was, hey, I'm going to respect and love whatever choice you make. I just wanted to be able to share my piece and have you hear me. And there was this part of me of like, I'm not good enough. So I have to be a chameleon for everybody and I can't make decisions on my own. And so then we end up unpacking like the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, it's completely okay that like we don't always see the world the same or situations the same, but also the part of me gets to work on hearing others' perspectives and people's perspectives that I love and not thinking that I have to fix everything or have it be an ideal outcome for everybody because it's basically me advocating myself. I was like, well, I'll suffer, I'll sacrifice, but then nobody wants that. So it was really interesting.
That's fascinating. And I would be so curious. I would love to, if you're open for it another day, just to hop on a call, just the two of us and me sit there and find out what that part is in you. And like, that would be so cool to find out what is that part's memory and what is that part? Because once that memory happens, you might be so surprised because what you're thinking the reasoning is probably not at all the reasoning for that. And this is the thing too, there's, so one of the certifications I've done is intimacy from the inside out. And it's about couples and relationships. And it's about how we get into these cycles, right? You get into these relationship cycles, just as you said, right? Shark, turtle. And clownfish, turtle, and you get into these cycles. And as we were saying about the stress tools and everything and all of that, like you can sit and unpack that. You know now that you and your partner need that time and space to pause, which is exactly what these, if you were to listen to actually my material, I'm like, oh, did he do my lessons? Because it is, when somebody's in clownfish, they need to sit and be quiet. If they're present with them, go make them their favorite drink, go make them a nice hot chocolate or something. And once they start sitting and feeling comfortable, or get them a blanket or massage their feet or whatever they need, that'll get that turtle out a lot faster than you speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're learning these tools, but when those tactical tools as well, if you still continue going into that pattern, that's when we're like, okay, we've used all these tools. We've got these great tools. We've got these great skills. We know this pattern, but we can't fix that pattern until we've worked on the parts. So I'd be so curious with her parts, why she turtles, and with your parts, why you, like, it would be cool to have the both of you on a call and find out each of your parts, because when you do this in like couples therapy,
mm-hmm.
and I do this like with parents and kids, when you do this with couples therapy too, and each of you hears what the other part's memory is, it changes everything. Because when you see them, you're like, oh, he's thinking this is protecting him because of this. How you react is like so different.
Yeah, truthfully, we got there because we do this together. And it was interesting because it was a new entry point. It was a new stressor that brought this part up, where 6 months, nothing. And then this one little thing that literally so insignificant created this, because I had no dolphin in me, and it was just short and like, nope, I'm doing it. And then it got to, well, one of the big takeaways, and before I even say this, I also think it's important what you said, like, this is for any interpersonal relationship. This is with you and your clients. This is with you and your team. This is with you and people you're connecting with. This is with business partners. This is with affiliate partners. This is with like anywhere where you have a relationship. This is everywhere. So this is applicable across the board. And I just wanted to say that because I'm blessed that I get to have these conversations with my clients, because I realize that it helps us be better. And I'm like, oh, hey, Andi, like this was coming up today. I just want to share this with you. You don't have to do anything, but like, and they're like, why did you share that? I'm like, it's better for me because now I'm aware of it. But what ended up happening is because of my life and the life that I lived, like lots of survival, then Marine Corps survival. And truthfully, the amount of work that I've done is a situation will happen and I will process that whole thing in like 3 milliseconds, knowing that I have more to unpack, but I'm going to end up in the same action item anyways. And so I commit to the action item and I like make a date with myself. I'm like, okay, tonight, like I get to go unpack this, but this thing is demanding my attention right now. And then what came up is like, I don't know your process. You just say yes to things or do things so quickly. And I was like, well, here's my thought process. And like, I got to share of like, it started in the Marine Corps of like, no. Like when you're in massive traumatic situations, you can't freeze. Freezing equals death. And I was like, oh, and then I got underneath it. I was like, oh, but even as a kid, and it started to get there of like, oh, if I don't handle it, if I don't act on it, if I can't make this very quick decision, then something's going to get worse. And then we got to share both sides. And she's like, well, here's what happens for me. And I was like, oh, and then it was like, because I didn't have, and this is what I saw. And then I like broke down in tears, and so did she. And then I was like, oh, and then we were just like in massive love. But these awarenesses, I think they like create intimacy, and they create this connection piece of like raw and real connection that rewrites all these neural pathways over and over and over again. And even in the team, like everybody who knows Ashley is my CEO, we've done this and had to do this repeatedly over the last 5 years or so, where like we're great. And then we hit a moment and it's like, we need to communicate differently. We need to work differently. We need to prioritize differently. And she's like, my goals have changed. My life has changed. I'm like, and I was like, oh, and then boundaries. And I'm like, oh, but here's my reaction to those boundaries. And I was like, I love them and I support them. And here's what's coming up for me. And it's just this like constant dance of refining and rebuilding these neural pathways to like really have a relationship with those parts.
Yeah, absolutely. And And I love that you said and, because I love living in the and. You don't need one feeling or another. I can feel totally excited and proud and want to support you and be scared about how that will affect me.
100%.
Living in the and, like you can. And that's what I love about being able to communicate that. And I do that with my kids all the time too, is like, I am this and I'm also this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's fascinating when you can start really expressing the and not think I have to say I am angry, because it's not just anger.
No, and I think it's important, and I don't know why I keep feeling called to share, but I'm just praying that everybody listening might resonate with my examples as the thing that I've learned in life and in business and performing coaching and success is that like there's never an end to this. It's more so that your relationship goes from like, oh, I have to do this to like, oh, I'm so excited I get to do this and become the best version of myself. That's the only thing that changes, but the work stays the same. Even when you talk about end, there is a part of me that I still unpack that sees a lot of situations in black or white. There's no gray. And that is a 100% survival part that's rooted all the way back down to like earliest memory of like 5, to where it's like everyone's either fully in agreement or else everything is broken. There's not this middle area or Schrodinger's cat theory of like multiple truths. And that end part lives in actually drastically different parts in my life. There's parts where it's out, my fitness, my food, my friendships, really, really flexible. But the ones that are the closest to me, right? Like my relationship with my future wife, with my son, with people that I love, there's this part that I constantly get to be aware of, to where I'll catch it now. And I'm like, how do you feel about this actually? Or like, what's a way that you think you could do this? And then it even boils into business as a quote unquote coach and consultant that helps people, where they like come to me to have this answer. And I'm like, but truthfully, the biggest breakthrough comes in curiosity and questions. And the end has showed up in that bucket as well. And so there's just this constant refinement and awareness. And, my buddy Brian Bogart talks about it all the time when he used to give talks on trigger mapping. He's like, what I need to know is I just need to know where all these plants in my garden are. And those plants are my parts. And some of them are fruitful and they're harvesting, and other ones are surrounded with weeds, and other ones aren't growing right now, and other ones need to be pruned. But it starts with having an awareness of these parts. And that's been probably the biggest breakthrough for me, is that I fell into this trap of like, I have to fix all these things. And where I started to shift massively is when I realized, quote unquote, fixing them was actually just having a relationship with them, because they came into my awareness, and then it gave me this presence and this tool to be able to communicate. And I've said this before. I'm like, hey, by the way, there's a part of me coming up right now that has nothing to do with this conversation, but is it okay if I share it? And they're like, yeah, totally. And it's led to like some of the greatest breakthroughs in friendships, in client work. And for everybody listening, if you've ever seen me keynote, I've done this in the middle of a keynote, where in the middle of a keynote, I got a text from my son that I couldn't read. And there's part of me came up in shark, right? Of like, what's happening? Is he okay? I'm out of town, and I couldn't finish the keynote. And so I said, hold on, I need a minute. And I told everybody what was happening in my body. And then I opened my phone. Turns out he wanted a code for a game. And I was like, okay, I'll handle that later. I put my phone away, and I was like, all right, now I can give the rest of my talk. But there's this massive empowerment in being able to authentically express those parts of ourselves. That's what's happened for me.
Yeah. And being unapologetically yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I think, especially for us that are neurodiverse, that are like, think outside the box and have these great ideas. I mean, most business people, most entrepreneurs are.
Yeah.
We have, there's no way that we can make a movement in the world if we think in a box.
Yes.
And so because we thought in a box so much growing up, and that scared a lot of people, or it didn't fit in the status quo, we were often like, they were all trying to close that box around us. And we learned that we couldn't be unapologetically ourselves. And so it's about learning your parts and giving your parts that love and that support and understanding and caring that they weren't given growing up, even by people who did love us in the way that they were able and capable to love us, because their parts were only allowing to love you in a certain way. and understanding all of that and loving these parts so that you can be more and more unapologetically yourself each and every day, the more that you work through these parts.
100%. 100%. And what I would add to that, just for me personally, is I say this on this podcast a lot, which is like, you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself. But it's hard to put that into like tangible, tactical nature. I realized loving myself is an active state of being unapologetically myself, which over time builds evidence that like I'm expressing myself authentically, I'm sharing my feelings authentically, and truthfully has been the biggest breakthrough ever because it brings everything to the surface. And then it builds my confidence for these parts to where then I'm a lot more open. Like, I love feedback now. I'm like, give it to me all day. Like, how can I be better? Like, I can't believe I said that. Like, I'm so sorry. I tell me why. Like, how did that land? But it comes on the other side of self first. And it's knowing these parts. And by the way, I'm not an expert in this. It's something I practice every single day. But in really building a relationship with those and also being willing to express those. And sometimes I found what I'm about to share feels like it's going to ruin this conversation. Like, we're talking about rainbows and unicorns and puppies. And I'm like, oh, dark storm cloud coming up in me. And then I've had the courage to say it. And then someone's like, I'm so glad that you said that, because I've been having like the same thought, or the XYZ. And then it just brings this realness, and this builds this confidence in myself and this peace in myself. And so it's really profound.
Yeah. It's a feeling that when you start discovering how to be in self and how to give your parts what they need that they weren't given by others, you get this peaceful feeling inside that I can't describe. Like, I never knew it was possible. And I'm going to say like it only happened in my mid 40s is when I really started doing this deep work and really started studying it and realizing, oh my gosh, like I had lived in such beliefs for so long, even though I was trying to break through them and trying to do all the things. And I mean, I was a sleep and stress coach for years and doing all of those things and still wondering why my HRV, my stress tolerance marker, was not raising. And it was crazy. I remember one day working with parts and my HRV rose 10. It was crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know? Because I thought it was all the tactical tools only, but we're in the and. It's tactical tools and loving and giving your parts what they need in order to be unapologetically themselves. And I love being able to blend all of those things together.
Yeah, which brings me to a point and a question about this with tactical tools, because I want people to have some. And you are a sleep, resilience, stress, I would say the byproduct of that is performance coach, right? Like, those all equal up to like performance, right? And I think there's two big buckets, right? Because, you know, we got to land the plane at some point soon, but like we have time to cover all these, and I want to hit these. Is that there's, I think, in the current world, 2025, the two things that no one is immune to, unless you go live on top of a mountain in a monastery in silence alone, are stress and relationships. And I find that those are the two biggest buckets that expose our parts, that also cause the most amount of stress for us. Because to your point, and you and I have talked about this before, none of us are really taught how to be in relationships, right? And we're also not taught how to navigate stress, especially stress of 2025. And so I would love kind of your thoughts, like take the floor, but like, what are some tactical tools? And even if you want to start with like an awareness of these things, that people can take these things that we've talked about, these parts in ourselves, and navigate the world that we live in now.
Yeah. So in working with parts is the big thing. We've really done a great job on covering that piece. So the other piece, as well as tactical tools that I would give people, is there's things that are definitely individual to people of what they could do tactically, but there are always some base foundational. So, I mean, I've worked a lot with first responders, like through the pandemic, all of that stuff. And it was amazing because even guys that were working fire stations, that were like 5 days on, the neighboring station was out and they were covering a neighboring station doing 5 24-hour shifts. Like, they were able to even get some bandwidth with the stress by working on their breathing, but simple stuff, which I'll go through in a sec, and hydration. And I mean, it sounds the simplest. And then we did doing some and magnesium. So it's like, I would say those three would be those are the base tools I give everybody, like everybody. And then from there, we do start figuring out what are your stressors in your life. But so to break them down, hydration, keeping it really simple, just drink water as much as you can. If you don't like water, get some flavored teas and stuff or whatever, drop some fruit in it. Try your best to do what you can, but get enough water in you in a day. So that's the hugest thing. Your brain, as crazy as it is, once you become slightly dehydrated, it takes it from your brain first. So it changes your moods, your ability to focus, your ability to think. That when you are dehydrated, you have to really rehydrate yourself to get that back in your brain. And you will notice already, if you're dehydrated, that just hydrating will level out your moods, increase your brain and your activity and your energy. It will also help your sleep. So then the breathing. So we have our nervous system, and your nervous system's like a muscle. The more that you work it, the stronger it is to react. And the stronger it gets, the quicker it reacts. And with our nervous system, our stress nerve, our sympathetic nervous system has become so strong because every email, every even like emoji or going things on social media, those all click in our stress nerve. And so our stress nerve has become so strong that we need to start doing exercises and repetitions for our vagus resting nerve so that it's not overpowered. And breathing through your nose. So there's a lot of different breath work. There's trauma work. There's all that stuff that does nose and mouth. That is valuable. That is another tool. That is completely different from what I'm speaking of. What I'm speaking of is just constantly switching or consciously switching to your nose. So consciously switch from your mouth to your nose. Anytime you're breathing through your mouth, you're breathing stress nerve. Anytime you're breathing through your nose, you're breathing vagus resting nerve. Your vagus nerve is the wandering nerve around your body, but the most nerve innervation is around your diaphragm, where that air comes in your stomach. And it's unmyelinated. So think of a wire without a rubber coating. That copper wire is so easy to touch and engage. It's also easy to really, it's easy to engage, but it's also really easy to damage. So we want to make sure that those around our diaphragm, if we fill our belly with air, and then we're actually stimulating those nerves easier there. So we're getting more max reps for that vagus nerve, more max reps for that resting nerve in that diaphragm. And so you want to take those deep breaths in your nose, and you want to fill that diaphragm up and make sure that you're hitting those unmyelinated nerves and slowly out. Doing it slowly, this isn't a competition of how slow can I go. It's how slow can I go and stay in dolphin, right? You don't want to be so slow that it's stressing you out and moving you into clownfish or where you start worrying, right? So you want to go just slow it down through your nose as often as you can during the day, and think of this like a gym. Think of it completely like the gym. Think of it as reps, and do that as often as you can when you wake up, when you go to bed. Doing those two things, and those are the base, we can get way advanced. George has taught way advanced more of this, but these base things, only doing those, the water, the breathing, absolutely huge. And then the other one is magnesium, because magnesium is released anytime your stress system is released. So anytime there is a stress, doing an email, getting excited about something, it doesn't matter. Your stress system is releasing magnesium. You cannot eat enough magnesium to get your daily dose for what we need. So everybody, I think the stats are in the 80% of everybody in North America are magnesium deficient. And magnesium is what helps you as well lower the cortisol, the stress hormone, from your brain while you're sleeping, while you're trying to go to sleep. And it's the precursor to melatonin, your sleep hormone releasing. So taking a magnesium biglycinate, not a citrate, it loosens your bowels. Take a magnesium biglycinate or a 3 and 8, and take that an hour to 2 hours before bed. That will help to lower the cortisol, lower those thoughts, help you get into a better, deeper sleep, replenish your magnesium, and help with a bit of your circadian rhythms, along with the water and the breathing.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love the call out of, we by default are training our sympathetic nervous system, our stress nervous system, because of the world that we live in. But we also have to counteract that and proactively train our parasympathetic nervous system. And I also love the simple distinction of, like, if you're breathing through your mouth, sympathetic; through your nose, parasympathetic, and also not treating it like it's this accomplishment of, like, I can hold it longer, and then inducing stress. And so I love it. And you use scientific words that, like, I don't know, but I'm like, yes, as a breathwork teacher, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And I think to the point too of, like, for everybody listening, I don't think any of us are immune to stress, but it's really, how do we show up in that space to anchor this in for you and be dolphin, right? Of, like, our best decisions, our most creative moments, the best, sales calls, the best podcast interviews, the best meetings with our team, the best focus sessions come from when we're in dolphin. And I'm going to start tying some of this together, because if we realize in a moment we're not in dolphin, we are in either one of those other animals, like a shark or a clownfish or a turtle, that part is the first part where we recognize we're not in dolphin. We use a tool, and it's typically the most simple tools that we start to access and we start to use, like breath or movement, right? Light movement, not like I'm going to go, but like just state change movement with the things that you shared. And the goal here is to get to dolphin. If you don't get to dolphin, then there's probably a part of you that you get to start building a relationship with, but acknowledging that part is also what will help bring you back into dolphin, because dolphin is really this level of peace and awareness in the current moment, is how I would describe it. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%.
Okay. So I want to start landing this, but I have two more questions for you. But before I do, where is the absolute best place for anybody to connect with you? Whether they have a neurodivergent child with big emotions, whether they're like, I want to geek out with you about my parts, I want to tell you my parts and help me work through them, help me with my stress. Like, where's the best place for everybody to connect with you?
I would just say go to my website, because that's where my all my social media and everything, YouTube, all is. So it's andiclark.com, Andi with an I.
Yep.
So
ANDICLARK.com. And we'll have everything linked in the show notes too. And so,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was thinking too about creating a little more, because everything's like for kids on my one Instagram. I was thinking of creating one more for adults where I can really dive into the adult.
I think it would be helpful. Selfishly, like, I know every single client of mine, I'm like, go look at Andi's stuff. Like, here's what we're talking about. I don't know. And if you're listening to this, let her know. Like, if you want her to create that Instagram, like, let her know, reach out through her website. Her Instagram is on there. You can ask her, she'll tell you, but just go, like, pin it. So now I'm curious, because you mentioned something earlier about, now in my mid 40s, I'm starting to get this. And there's something true for me in that as well, of, like, in my 40s, something started to shift differently, and my desire for this became, like, really, really important for me. And so I'm curious, like, if you could go back and sit with your younger self, your 20-year-old self, your 30-year-old self for like 60 seconds, what would you say to her in 60 seconds?
I would tell them that they are totally worth it, and they have this amazing gift to connect with people and help and empathize with people. And they have this gift to really help people understand what it is that they need in order to help themselves. And they have to trust themselves and believe in themselves enough in order to be able to help other people. So go heal yourself so that you can start speaking your truths and not hiding behind worrying what other people are going to think about you or say about you because you're outside of the box. Like, be out of the box, be unapologetically yourself. You are amazing.
I love that. And actually, that leads me to one that I want to ask you now on top of that, which is, after everybody's listened to this, what's one belief that you hope that they walk away with after hearing this?
that if you grew up being told that you needed, like being treated like you needed to be in a box, like if you were being told that you were too much, that you were too much for people, or your idea was too crazy, or, you know, you need to calm down, you need to sit down, you need to be somebody that you weren't meant to be, I want them to know that that was because people didn't understand their superpower. And once you start looking at it from this other lens of that was actually my superpower and what I can do to make a change in this world. What is my desire? What is my dream that I've always had? And what is stopping me? How am I stopping myself from making this dream come true? Because I was told that I was too much, and I was told that I shouldn't be, that I should stay in that box. What are you now able to do? How can you switch that thought so that you can now make your impact in the world?
I love that. I love that. I had to ask. I had those two hit me, and I was like, I want to know. I want to know. Yeah, and I appreciate you and I know we could jam out about this for like 10 hours, you and I, when we talk about this stuff. Like, I geek out because I'm like, look, I'm not crazy. I actually know what I'm talking about. She just has the education to back it up. But I think I really enjoyed. Yeah, go tell me.
No, change that statement.
Education or experience?
Your education on that. Like, you are educated, but see, this is one of the things I homeschool.
I love how you challenge my part. You just challenged a part of mine. So everybody, this is happening live right now. This is a part of George that is being challenged by Andi, and I'm going to accept this challenge all day. Go ahead.
So, like, yeah, I do. I homeschool my kids and I get questioned all the time. What about degrees? What about this? What about that? And I'm thinking, like, what about it? This world is completely changing. What education is. Like, my kids are learning they're learning tech, they're learning coding, they're learning all of these things from people that are actually in the field teaching it. They are not learning it from somebody who did it years ago and is now teaching it in a college or university. So when you're saying education, I think that what you were meaning was from a professor that is hired by an institution and is told what and how they have to speak, versus your education of life and experience and learning it from people who teach this and coach it and diving in and living it every single day. Mm-hmm. So if I was to say this, you are more educated than some of those people that actually maybe have that degree in it, but haven't practiced it and are not practicing it in each and every day.
Thank you for challenging that part of me, because that's the part of me that is afraid to take up space and be self-righteous, when in actuality, for everybody listening, I've been on my own as an adult since I was 11. And then I've been doing this work since 2002. And so I feel young, but the moment I say that, that's 23 freaking years. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so thank you for challenging that and saying that. That resonated in my heart a lot. And so I appreciate that. And I want to wrap this for everybody listening. I'm the guy, if you go listen to my podcast 5 years ago, because it's been around that long, holy moly, or look at social content from 7 years ago, or even 4 years ago, who was like, I have the answer. I'm in shark mode. I'm in like, go, 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 fight, 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 boom, 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 cuss word every other way, to now me, where I'm just like this loving teddy bear who loves Jesus with all of his heart and loves people and loves himself. That loving myself has been the biggest secret to my success. It's magnetic because it's authenticity, and authenticity resonates so deeply compared to love. It's been studied. There's science on it. You can go find the study. But what this really is an invitation. I think, and I've said this on this podcast before, that we all spend too much time avoiding the one relationship we're guaranteed to spend the rest of our life with. And a willingness and excitement to be on an airplane and put that oxygen mask on first is the one that actually brings everything that we've ever desired into our life. albeit sometimes it doesn't look like we thought it would look. I've learned that I need to get a whole lot more specific with my prayers to God, because he answers them. And I was like, oh, I could have added some, line items to this prayer, but thank you, Lord, for speaking into my ambiguity and giving me exactly what I asked for. But in the same vein, that's the most beautiful part, where the more that we have this relationship with every part of ourselves. And there's this one interview that I always come back to in this conversation. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you might enjoy it. It was Mike Tyson sitting down with Sadhguru. And one of the best, most contrasty conversations I've ever seen in my life. Like, you couldn't take two polar opposites that shared so much of the same wisdom, but the way that Sadhguru explained it is that we all get issued this body like a vehicle, and we never take the time to read the owner's manual. And this whole conversation, I think, is a roadmap of the owner's manual for what makes us us, whether that is your mind, your heart, your body, your soul, your intuition, your relationship with source, or for me, God and Jesus, whatever that is for you, is these parts of us are made up and they assemble us into this package. And today's an invitation to start unpacking those parts, because our body is the best barometer for everything that we experience in the world. There's a reason our jaw gets sore, or that we get a feeling in our tummy. There's a reason why you get short of breath when you think about something. There's a reason why you get those spidey senses, or all of a sudden your back hurts and it hasn't hurt for a while, right? There's a reason in all of it. And we have to stop advocating that to all these other people or these things, and then start exploring it for ourselves. And so I just hope today is an invitation for anybody that was tickled by this or this landed to dive into this, to look at a part, to build a relationship with your part, to try to be a dolphin a whole lot more often, because being a dolphin is constantly pursuing dolphin, because it's not by default in the world that we live in. But then realizing when you're a shark or a clownfish or a turtle, I have all of them. I told Andy at the beginning of today, I was a turtle yesterday. And then today I was like, okay, no more turtle. Thank you for serving me, filled my bucket, gave me an incredible day. And now, like, back on the field. But I think just having this excitement about pursuing this relationship with ourselves is going to be the biggest breakthrough that we have. And I know this personally because I know Andy very well. If you have anything that resonated with you, a question to ask, a thought to share, I found my fish or my stress animal, or I've been being a dolphin today, I promise you she loves hearing it, and she geeks out about your parts and how they show up and how she can help. And so do her a justice and a service, and at minimum go to andyclark.com with an I and send her a thank you, or connect with her, or DM her on Instagram and say, I would love you to have an Instagram for adults because I could use this, or whatever that is. But just give the gift back and share it. And so, Andi, I just thank you so much for coming on the show. We were overdue for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our talks,
the timing was perfect, though.
Wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. And I'm just so grateful that you have come into my life. It's just been amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, no, amazing. So for everybody listening, this has been another episode of the Mind of George Show. You'll either see me in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs. But either way, and I'm going to put a stamp on it today, the most important relationship you're building is the one with yourself. And so do yourself a favor and go fall in love with those parts of yourself. And so I love you all. God bless. We'll see you soon.